welcome to the inaugural edition of the Goal Line Stand. Mr. Andrew Spaziano here with Mr. Tom Condi here out of Providence, Rhode Island.
Hey everyone.
How you doing, Tom?
Good. Good night tonight.
Yep, ready to talk some football talk?
Let's go.
All right. So we're gonna go over kind of the past, present, future here. We're gonna go over some of the big matchups from last week. Gonna talk about some of the stuff going on right now with the playoff races, and then we're going to talk about next week and also some of the MVP race, and obviously how that's kind of been mixed up with the Carson Wentz injury. So, let's just jump right into it. First game we're going to go over from last week was it's the game I wish I was on TV because I really wanted to watch it. It was Vikings-Panthers. Carolina came through in the end of that one. What was it, 31-24 is the final?
Yes, it was. Carolina ran all over Minnesota.
They had 200 yards, right?
216.
And I know Cam had I think it was a 60-yard run near the end of the game and set up the game-winning touchdown from Stewart. Honestly, I felt like with that game, the Vikings were kind of just due to lose. It's kind of like a cliche thing, but they've been in. I kind of look at it like they didn't play their best game to turn the ball over 3 times, but they still had a chance to win. So I think that's a testament to how balanced they are and the amount of talent they have on both sides of the ball.
Cam took over the game. He had 11 attempts for rushing, 70 yards. He outran McCaffrey. McCaffrey had 8 attempts, 35 yards. But all in all, it was all through the run game that they had success. They just stayed with the run. They scored 17 points in the second half. And then Cam just being Cam and making throws that he's known for. He still has a high ceiling.
Yeah. I think the thing with Cam is that when you look at him on the stat line, it really doesn't jump out at you. But what you're saying is he makes throws when he needs to. He makes the plays. Obviously, he had that big run. He knows how to lead in the clutch, and I think that's something you can't teach. I think that's something that's just kind of a player either has or doesn't have, and it's clear. Even through the season he had in college at Auburn, that he has that ability to be the guy to lean on in a situation where you need a score.
Especially in that offense, they're asking him to be that quarterback to shoulder the franchise. They added some gadget plays, but at the end of the day, they're expecting Cam Newton to lead the team. Even if they're down by 6, need a touchdown to win the game, they're asking him to shoulder that burden and lead a drive to win the game.
Yeah. And that's what he did. I mean, I think Carolina, they led throughout most of the game. Minnesota got the ball, I think it was 24-21. Newton threw a pick, and they ran it back. I think it was to the 2-yard line.
His only pick of the game.
Yeah. They threw it back, I think, to the 2-yard line. Ran it back on the interception. And Minnesota had to settle for a field goal, and it just felt like... It just felt like the Vikings, they had all the momentum on their side. They needed to get that touchdown there. And, it was kind of a rough outing for Case Keenum. I know he had 2 picks. I know there was a fumble in the game I think he was credited for as well. And it was kind of one of those controversial, was the arm moving forward or not? Did he have possession? Because I know there's a lot of controversy. I ended up seeing a couple of snippets of that game. And I know Romo was saying, that's not a fumble. It's it's just one of those kind of... iffy calls there.
Yeah, after the tuck rule way back with Brady's case, they kind of clarified that rule now. So it's more cut and dry in today's NFL than it is in the past, where a game was decided in a gray area with some NFL fans.
Yeah, if we're going to be honest, the tuck rule, even though it benefited my Patriots, it never made any sense. The rule does, it just...
But not to deviate, but... I don't want to just put that one play on Keenum. They couldn't get the run game going as a whole.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Minnesota. You got Jerick McKinnon, who went 7 attempts for 46 yards, and you have Case Keenum as your second leading rusher with 5 attempts, 40 yards. Latavius Murray, he had it for 9 times, but 14 yards, that can't cut it.
Yeah.
You can't cut it.
And
McKinnon is your pass catching back. You want to get him into open space on the pass, and they keep him in there during the run game to at least have the defense respect when he comes in, to not tip off that it's going to be a pass, that he can threaten in the run game.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's sort of I think that, again, that's a testament to what they've been able to do. I mean, they lost Dalvin Cook. It was like week 4 or something like that.
Week 4, yeah, and he was the league leading rusher at that point.
Yeah, I believe it. You lose a guy like that, and they've been able to kind of plug those two guys in, and kind of committee what Cook was doing in that role.
And that's what makes a special player is when a running back like that can not only just run the ball, because that's just instinctual. And any football player will look at the running lanes as a running back and hit the hole. That's how you're taught with football. When you have a player who can pass protect, go out for routes, and threaten in the running game, that's what makes a special player, and that's like Dalvin Cook. But with the tandem of McKinnon and Latavius Murray, they've at least filled that void that Cook left.
Yeah.
And each one is unique in their running style, but Minnesota has done a very good job on implementing both of them and giving them their touches. Because early, when Dalvin Cook got hurt, early in that year, McKinnon was the guy that they leaned on. And now that they're getting into that playoff push, Latavius Murray's that guy that's going to help run that ball and keep that defense fresh.
No, definitely. They found a way to balance between the two of them, which is always good. I'm not that worried about Minnesota. I mean, they lost to a good team. They played a close game despite the mistakes they made. I think that was a big win for Carolina, particularly. We're going to talk about the playoff picture later, but I mean,
Huge.
Yeah, given the amount of teams, because I kind of, going into the week, I chalked it up for a loss for the Panthers, because I figured the way Minnesota was playing, they were, I thought it'd be close, but I didn't think they'd be able to pull the game out. So, I mean, credit to them. I mean, that's a game they needed to win.
We'll talk about it later on, but you have 4 teams, 6 teams literally playing from here on out playoff style. You have to win out.
No, definitely. NFC's crazy. Moving on to a couple of NFC playoff teams, Rams-Eagles was a very exciting game to watch. I think that was the game of the week on Fox. That was pretty much the national broadcast. It was a good game. I mean, I felt like, I think the Wentz injury has definitely, for good reason, it's kind of dominated the storyline of that game. But I mean, the Eagles did a good job responding in that game from that loss in Seattle. That's kind of what I was saying during the week. Me and you were talking off the air. They needed to, even if they didn't win the game, they had to play well. They needed to bounce back from Seattle. And I thought, they did a good job coming out and, and playing a good game.
They scored 24 points in the first half and only let up 14. That's a way that you want to respond after a loss like that.
No,
you
absolutely.
want to respond, have your offense come out, start scoring, play your game plan, defense holds them up. Because LA is not a team to sleep on. I am a fan of the LA Rams and what they can do. But they simply lost it. They lost this game.
Yeah. And I think I don't think Nick Foles, he wasn't spectacular when he came in, but he made the plays he needed to make in relief. There was one particular play, a third down in medium, towards the end of the game where he completed a pass to Nelson Aguilar, and it was a great catch, first of all, by Aguilar. But the spot he put it in was the spot you need to put in if your guy and only your guy's going to make the catch. I thought that was really, a really telling play for him. To be able to just come in like that, and I think when you come in off in relief, even it's kind of a cliche thing. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm prepared to come in whenever," but like when somebody gets hurt like that, the adrenaline's going. You got a lot of stuff going through your head, and he did a nice job of staying composed and, helping them win the game, but certainly not losing them the game.
Yeah, that game was far from over when he had to come in. So him coming in, and don't forget, he did it for Michael Vick. I'm going to get my numbers scrambled, but I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago.
I think it was 2013. I think that was the 27-2 touchdown to interception season for him, where everybody thought he was the next thing. I like Nick Foles. I mean, he's not Carson Wentz.
No.
I'm just going to say this. There's worse backups in the league to have.
It's definitely, you mentioned it earlier how Philadelphia is going to respond after that loss against Seattle. But this game upcoming, this is a game that I want to see because now you have to change your offensive game plan. Similar to what the Cowboys had to do when they lost Ezekiel Elliott for that 6-game suspension.
No, absolutely.
There's going to be a couple of weeks trying different things because here's my thing, is that they're going to have to lean on this running game with Clement. They're going to have to run the ball about 30 times between those two guys. And now you don't have a quarterback that can stretch down the field, roll out the pocket. Nick Foles, to me, is a very game-managing quarterback.
That's fair.
They're going to need Ajayi to be that 200 straight yard running back that he was in Miami.
Yeah.
When he had that 3-game stretch when he had back-to-back. Was it 3 games?
It was something like that. It was some crazy stretch he had last year.
But that's what they're going to need him to be. And I don't know if they can withstand that.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, I guess the silver lining here, and it's really not much of a silver lining, is at least this didn't happen like Derek Carr last year, where that happened second to last week of the season. They have a few weeks to kind of figure things out. They've already clinched the division. Granted, you want home field, you want the bye week, but I mean, most importantly, you have to get your direction. So I think that's a good point there that they kind of got to feel things out. I just want to clarify too, like when I say like I like Nick Foles, I'm not saying like Nick Foles is like a world beater quarterback and is gonna like light the world on fire. But like if you look at backups across the league, I mean, you could be in worse situations. Like if Tom Brady got hurt, you have Brian Hoyer, in which case you're just gonna flush the season.
If this is a team middle of the pack with a chance to lose a spot, Nick Foles is a guy efficient enough, or at least he has shown to be efficient enough, to at least get you there as a wild card contender. But they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like you said, they can use the next 3 weeks. You're guaranteed a playoff spot.
Right.
You already won the division. You can use the next 3 weeks. Now you'll move up. You'll move down the seeding if you start losing games. But you're guaranteed a playoff spot. You're guaranteed that ticket into the dance.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what Philly's remaining schedule. I know they have to play Dallas the last week of the season.
Home. They're home.
Yeah, and I believe they also have to play the Giants again. Because I know they played them early in the year. I don't think they've played twice, and that'll be in New York. So that's 2 of their 3 games right there. And I mean, the Giants is definitely a winnable game. And I mean, last week of the season, it's going to kind of just depend where Dallas is. I mean, I think they're going to show up even if they're not playing for anything because it's like, I mean, why aren't you going to like give it your all? So I think that's definitely a question mark. And I'm not sure what their third game is. I'll have to check. Because, I mean, like you were saying before, the NFC playoff picture is just so crowded right now, and especially even the teams that are in right now, it's crowded. I mean, you know, Minnesota's 11-3. The Saints are 10
Minnesota's 10-3.
Sorry, 10-3. So the Saints are 9-4, I believe.
Saints are 9-4. Rams are 9-4.
And,
Panthers 9-4. Falcons 8-5.
It's crazy. So they've got so they're at the Giants this week. Home against the Raiders, home against the Cowboys. So all 3 of those are winnable games.
They could theoretically be home for the next month after the Giants.
Oh, absolutely.
If they get a bye, and then they host a game.
And then even if they're the 2 seed, if Minnesota or whoever loses. So, no, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. But like you said, I think the big story there is how they're going to respond. And, I mean, the Rams, we're going to talk about it later, but they have a tough game. They're going to go to Seattle. Talking about the Seahawks, that's the other big game. Another big game from this past week was them and the Jaguars. I ended up watching a lot of that game, and that Jaguars defense is terrifying, man. I mean, we're going to talk about Russell Wilson and what he's been for that team later when we do some MVP talk. But, I mean, if you've seen what Russell's done kind of running around, improvising, breaking the pocket, I think the Jaguars did a spectacular job in containing him. And there was one particular play he threw an interception trying to hit Jimmy Graham, and AJ Aboye was trailing him, and he did a fantastic job of kind of luring Russell into throwing it because he just kind of was lurking back there, and once he saw the ball thrown, he kind of put on the jets and caught up with it and intercepted it. They just did a good job, I think, of game planning for that. And I know Seattle made a nice run at the end of the game to try to come back, but I thought for at least the first 3 quarters, they did a fantastic job of kind of limiting him because, I mean, you can't just totally take somebody like Russell Wilson out of the mix, but you can at least limit what he's able to do. And that secondary is elite enough where they can kind of not take over the game, but just kind of they can compensate for that. They're that good, I think.
Yeah. They are, and there's nothing that you're gonna throw at Russell Wilson and that offense as a whole for Seattle. There's nothing that you're gonna throw at them that either they haven't already seen or that they can't adjust to.
Yeah.
It seems that no matter what happens to this Seattle team on the offensive side, they're just efficient. Russell Wilson is putting this team on his back and scoring points.
Yeah, I agree.
The defense, they lost big names, but the defense is at least holding their own.
Yeah.
They're holding their own, and that's all you can ask.
I mean, I was looking at the stats preparing for the show last night, and honestly, Seattle's defense, especially their pass defense, isn't nearly as bad as I thought it's been in the last few games.
It's that front seven. I'm a big firm believer that front
Yeah.
seven will help that back end cover those receivers.
Yeah, well, Bobby Wagner's playing out of his mind right now. I mean, the dude's just like, I mean, he's probably going to get Defensive Player of the Year, or he should at least be a front runner in that race.
He's a good candidate. I like DeMarcus Lawrence out of Dallas.
Yeah. No.
He's a league leading sack leader.
Yeah, and I mean what he brings to that line. I mean, without him, I mean that line isn't nearly what it is with him. He's a force.
And against a defense like Dallas, I mean, I know you're looking at Sean Lee, but as a defensive end, it would relatively be easier to double block or send some help for DeMarcus Lawrence, where a linebacker got to scrape, got to come from that second level. So he does belong in the candidacy.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought overall, though, it was a big win for the Jaguars. There was a lot of talk after the game. Blake Bortles was saying that nobody was talking about us, nobody's taking us seriously, because the Jaguars do have a stigma. I mean, they haven't been a good organization record-wise, and just they've been pretty dysfunctional for the last 7, 8, 9 years. They've had a lot of struggles. And the pieces have finally come together for them. And I think beating an organization like the Seahawks, who, granted, they are depleted on defense, they're definitely not at the same level that they've been playing at, just personnel-wise, the past few years. That's still like a marquee franchise in the NFL. And I think beating that team and playing the way they did, I think sends a message to the rest of the league.
What I liked from Jacksonville is going into the second half, it was 3-0 Jacksonville over Seattle. Now, you got a stalemate against, like you said, a very storied franchise, Seattle, especially in recent years. But then you come into the third quarter, come into the second half, and you score 21 points, and then you follow that up in the fourth quarter with 6. I feel that shows that you can make the adjustment, exploit what the defense is giving you, and have Blake Bortles play efficient enough to win you the game.
Yeah.
Because that's all you want Blake Bortles to do. I think that's where Jacksonville kind of trapped themselves, is that in the years past, they were asking Bortles to just shoulder the franchise. Can you, with the little talent we have, can you shoulder this franchise, mask the deficiencies that we have on this team, and still make it to the playoffs?
Yeah.
He shows that he can't do that, but it's not that he doesn't have the potential to.
Yeah.
They got him Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
They got him a solid running back who had 24 rushing attempts for 101 yards and a touchdown. That's a solid running back.
Yeah.
They got some weapons on the outside. He's passing it around to Marquise Lee, Westbrook, Cole. None of these names are jumping out at you, but
they're getting it done.
He's playing efficient.
Yeah.
Playing efficient.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I've been kind of a Blake Bortles hater for the last couple of years. He was unfortunately my keeper in our fantasy football league, which is a whole other story that I don't feel like explaining.
There's not enough time.
No, it's quite the saga right there. But anyways, but I think you make a good point. In Allen Robinson tore his ACL week 1. He hasn't had, a top flight receiver, which is what Allen Robinson has developed into. He's become a very, I don't know if he's like a top 10 receiver, but he's definitely like in a top, like, half.
I wouldn't say he reached his ceiling.
Yeah, I would agree.
I say there's potential for him to be a top 10 receiver.
I agree.
When Blake Bortles was on 2 years ago, I mean, he could stand amongst the best of them.
Yeah, and they were throwing it all over the yard. So, no, I agree with you.
And that's what makes what's the year past, last year, Bortles' horrible year. People saw him regress and was like, "Oh, this guy, maybe we should draft another quarterback.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go out and get other different type of proven veteran
Yeah.
who might be able to lead us to the promised land.
Yeah.
Instead, they kept with him, and they gave him a little bit more help. Now, like you said, Allen Robinson got hurt. The other receivers stepped up and have kind of filled that void.
Yeah. They're making do with what they have. I think this is a good segue talking about Blake Bortles and kind of the role they're asking him to do. It's not the next on our list, but I think it's a good segue into it, is Raiders-Chiefs. That's exactly what they haven't done with Derek Carr this year, the Raiders. The Raiders needed this game, and I thought this was going to be a good game, especially the way Kansas City's been playing the past few weeks. They've really the second half, like the last 7-8 games, they've been playing pretty terribly, particularly on defense. I thought it was a game where Oakland could kind of make a statement and show that they're better than the way they've been performing this year, and they just go out and lay an egg. I think what their biggest issue is, what I'm trying to say is that with Carr, and it's not even really injury, if you look at how their offense ran last year, they were running their offense as run first. They were establishing the run with Latavius Murray, and they were setting up the pass with the run. And this year, they're like, well, Derek, we paid you, so now you got to go fling it all over the yard. And it's like, why? And especially when you lure Marshawn Lynch out of retirement, you're making a commitment to the running back position, so why are you not utilizing him well? And, Amari Cooper's been basically a non-factor this year. He's had like 2-3 good games, and I might be being generous there. I know he had that one big game against the Chiefs the first time, but besides that, he hasn't done anything. And I think, you can argue, after Crabtree, what do they have for weapons? I like Jared Cook.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you're not supposed to be a pass-first team. You're supposed to be running the ball and then letting Derek Carr throw the ball down the field, but not making him throw the ball 40 times a game.
It's one of those things on what came first, the chicken or the egg. Do you want to be a run-first team or do you want to be a pass-first team? Because you can be a successful team and be a pass-first.
Yeah.
Look at your New England Patriots. Look at the Indianapolis Colts when they had Peyton Manning. They were efficient, throwing the ball, and they used the little short swing passes and the short passing game as their supplement for the running game or lack of the running game.
But I think my argument is, I know there's been talk about the Raiders' offensive line struggling a bit this year, but I think my point is, I don't think it's that they can't run the ball. I think it's that their strategy is just that they're trying to be more of a passing team, and I think that's a mistake. I think not only does it make more sense for your offense, but your defense is statistically not that good. And it's not like they don't have talent. I think they're trying to build something on defense. But I think ultimately you want to kind of do what Dallas has done in the past when they haven't had good defenses, try to pound the ball, try to control the clock. And Oakland, I think, is just trying to be this high-flying team, and they're not built for that. So I think that's just a mistake from strategy from Del Rio and company.
I feel that's easier to say right now, only because the reflection of this past game, Kansas City Chiefs beat them 26-15.
Yep.
But the Chiefs scored 16 points in the first half, 3 in the first quarter, 13 in the second quarter.
Sure.
A lot of teams get scared of running the ball on that. They only had 11 rushing attempts. Marshawn, 7 attempts, 61 yards, and a touchdown.
But think of that average, though. 761, I don't have the math offhand, but that's a good clip.
Yeah.
That's over 6 yards a carry.
Marshawn has definitely got his legs underneath him towards the second half of this season.
Absolutely.
Because the first 8, I felt he was very pedestrian. And his numbers backed it up. But towards this playoff push of the year, he has definitely gained his legs back, so to speak, and he is producing. But not every team will stay to the run when they're down 16. Now, I know that's 2 possessions, 2 points, but for some head coaches, some offensive coordinators, they're not going to run the ball that much.
No, I hear you. I think we're kind of piling on the Raiders here, and I think it's sort of justified, especially with the expectations they had. But
huge expectations coming into this year.
They were supposed to be the second team in the AFC behind the Patriots.
It's a safe assumption.
I think it was between them and Pittsburgh, but Oakland was at least in the conversation. Right now, they're not even in the playoff picture. The game I probably should have led with, Falcons-Saints was a close game, and I was very impressed that Atlanta pulled that game out. Granted, I think
you were impressed with that game?
I was impressed that Atlanta held on to win because they always find a way to lose those games. But what you're saying
Fair enough. They should have lost that game.
Oh, they should have. I mean,
should have lost
I
that
think the
game.
argument can be made the Saints lost that game and Atlanta didn't win it because I think the Saints are a better team than Atlanta through and through. And that's not taking away from the Falcons. I just think what the Saints have this year is tremendous.
Unfortunately, I feel like that game was and will be defined by that interception by Drew Brees.
Yeah.
I'm not an NFL quarterback, but I just felt like that was a poor read on his part. And Drew being Drew, we're so used to seeing him just make those kinds of throws continuously, where when he does throw those boneheaded type interceptions, especially at a critical moment like that to win a game, it was definitely a head scratcher. Like, Drew, you're not supposed to do that.
I think for me, first of all, I have no problem with them trying to win the game in that situation. I think it was the way they went about it. I was reading an article somewhere, it might have been on the Ringer or something, and they were talking about the game, and they're saying they tried to run the ball in that sequence like once. And the thing is, even if Fleener makes that catch, just 80 seconds left on the clock, and the Falcons, I think they had at least one timeout, if not two, so they have a chance to go and win the game themselves. It just didn't feel like they managed that situation well. Obviously, in that situation, I mean, who made the interception? It was Deion Jones, right? Linebacker. I know he had a hell of a game.
If you give me a moment, I can find that.
Yeah. I think that's who it was. I mean, first of all,
yeah.
I think you're not taking away from it, but I think the piece that kind of you left out, he made an incredible pick. I mean,
yeah, he definitely showed his height in the jumping category.
I don't know how the hell he got up that high, but he made a hell of a catch for the interception.
He definitely climbed the ladder to get that. But that was also he had help on that play, so he can make a
take a
last
risk.
gasp type risk and go up for that ball. Because if he doesn't have help there and he miscalculates that, just misses it, that's 6. That's game over.
No, I hear you. I think it was a terrible game from the Saints, and I think like if they had lost the game and played well, I'd be like, well, it's a division game against a good team. I'd be like, all right, but I mean, just the way they played it.
I wouldn't say they played bad. I mean, Drew played well, minus that interception. He went 26 for 35, 271.
They just had a lot of dumb penalties. I mean, I noticed that a trend for them was they kept committing those bad defensive fouls, holding, legal contact, kept keeping drives alive. And I mean, in today's NFL, that's kind of going to happen at least once or twice a game, but it was happening a lot.
Yeah, 11 penalties for 82 yards.
Exactly.
You're not going to. That's not a recipe for success.
No, and I mean, especially,
in the NFL.
and I mean, you think 11 penalties, the yardage would be a lot more than that, but I mean, it's because they were 5-yard illegal contact holding, which are automatic first downs.
On a side note, I know Cincinnati doesn't want to hear about penalties and yardage. I know last week, 2 weeks ago, against Pittsburgh, they racked up a franchise record.
I believe it.
Yeah.
That's a whole other can of worms you could open that game.
But on the same token, with the penalties that New Orleans was producing, Matt Ryan,
oh my God.
Boy. To go from
Do you see that pick he threw before halftime?
MVP of last year.
Yes.
And then this year, he's just human.
Their offense is just, they've kind of clicked a little bit the last few weeks. I mean, Ryan had a terrible game the other night. I mean,
15 for 27, 221, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions.
And that pick he threw before halftime was egregious.
Oof.
And I mean, it ended up because the Saints made a stupid penalty on the kick. They ended up not getting points out of it. But I think what happened on that play is I think there was 14 seconds left. They had a timeout, and they were kind of like, we can run 2 plays here and try a field goal because they weren't in field goal range. They were around midfield, and I think he took so much time off the clock that he panicked. It was like, I got to get rid of this ball because I'm taking too much time. And he literally just threw it to Marshawn Lattimore. He literally, if Marshawn Lattimore was running the route, it would have been a good pass. Julio, I don't think even was turned around for it.
I think maybe he liked the jerseys. I know I like the jerseys
for
both teams.
Yeah. No, the Saints had that nice gold trim or something. They were nice. On a side note, color rushes for me, it's either they're really good or they suck. I feel like there's no in between. It's either it works or it doesn't.
I was definitely a big fan of that night. I liked Atlanta's color rush. It kind of looked a little collegiate, but I liked it. I liked the red on red with the black helmet.
Yeah. I agree. It worked.
But back to the stats and whatnot, the game review. Freeman was welcomed back, 24 attempts, 91 yards, and a touchdown. His longest was 19 yards. Tevin Coleman had 9 attempts, 32 yards. The run game is efficient, I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe they should should give him the ball. I mean, Matt Ryan is not producing in that MVP caliber of the year before.
No, exactly.
Now, I know you have a different offensive coordinator and every.
Well, I think that's what it is. I think the offensive coordinator and Sarkisian and Ryan were definitely not on the same page for most of the year, especially the first half of the season. They had some really awful games. Games they blew. They went to New England. And they could have made a game against New England, but they had some dumb calls, the jet sweep on the goal line, things like that, and it just wasn't working. And I thought they kind of had it together, but I think that's a good point that until Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram kind of became like the tandem in the league, I mean, Coleman and Freeman was the running back tandem. I mean, those are two starter-worthy backs that you have there. Use them. I mean, you have them.
Especially when you have a quarterback. He's struggling. For layman's terms, he's struggling.
Yeah, definitely.
And to help him out, run that rock. Run the ball.
I agree.
They're getting 100 yards out of the both of them. Now, I understand Freeman had the concussion. He missed 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I understand that. And you're asking Matt Ryan to do a little bit more. You're asking Coleman to do a little bit more.
Sure.
You're asking Julio, and et cetera. But run the ball. Run that rock.
I agree.
And they're not an offensive line that can't run the ball.
Sure.
They've shown that they can run the ball and efficiently.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those things. It's like you have a skill, you're just choosing not to utilize. And I think that's a good point that, it's not like they don't have any other option. They have the ability to run it, and they should. I mean, if they can. I think when you come down to it, I mean, I think it wasn't a pretty game, but it's a game the Falcons absolutely needed to win with the playoff picture the way it is and the way their schedule is down the stretch.
It was an ugly game with turnovers and penalties from New Orleans. It was an ugly game, but it had a fun ending.
Yeah.
What game was the most fun, I think, was Baltimore and Pittsburgh.
I think that game was crazy.
Now, I'm more of a traditional football guy. I don't mind 17, 13 games.
I'm with you.
I don't mind it. But that game was all about offense.
Oh, my God. I think what blew my mind was what Alex Collins was doing to the Steelers defense. I mean, I think the storyline you take from that, and it's something that's kind of been said a lot, but they miss Ryan Shazier in the middle. I mean, I think that's one of the big issues they had. It's going to be an issue going forward. I mean, just barring the injury he suffered, which is just like awful in itself, on the impact it could have on his life day to day. I mean, just the impact on the team is like their force in the middle is gone, and it's kind of like what New England's had to do with Donta Hightower with mixed success. Like, you're not going to replace the guy. Like, that's your most talented linebacker, and it's one of the more talented linebackers in the league. You have to kind of have that committee approach where you need several guys to fill the role. And I think they'll probably figure it out coming down the stretch here. I just, it's the first game, and it was a short week, and they really had issues with Collins.
What I like about Alex Collins is that he's young. And
yeah.
Baltimore already has their quarterback. Now they can also have their running back. I mean, he went. Let me see.
Yeah, his line, I did see it. It was crazy.
18 attempts, 120 yards, and a touchdown. His longest was 21 yards on a carry. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think he was phenomenal.
And I think the thing is with Baltimore, and again, we're going to talk about the playoff picture. Actually, once we wrap up talking about this game, they've needed their offense to produce, and I think a lot of that's understandably has laid at the feet of Joe Flacco, but I think getting the running game going too, I think it's also something that can help them and help benefit their passing game.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, I'm a fan of Joe. Now, I'm not going to say he's elite, but
yeah.
I think he needs help. He needs some weapons. Alex Collins was a good pickup for them. He's a good running back to help Joe out. But I think for future-wise, I think they got to get a WR1. They need to get a receiver that can play the intermediate routes, not afraid to go over the middle, can run the seam route, the fly route, can run all sorts of routes. And I think that'll help Joe out. Because look when they had Anquan Bolden.
Yeah.
I know they had an extraordinary defense, but he had that receiver where he could throw the ball anywhere near him, and he knew, or he was comfortable that Anquan's going to catch it.
And they had chemistry.
Yes.
And I think I mean, Steve Smith was on his last legs when he was there, but I think to a degree they had some chemistry. Steve Smith had some breakout games, but if we really want to play this game and really open up the history books, have they ever had a WR1 on that team throughout their history of their team? What's the closest they had? Derek Mason? I mean, honestly. I mean, they really have never...
You got me there.
Yeah, I mean, they've never really had an elite receiver in that organization. Now, granted, they tried. They drafted Brashard Perryman, who has not panned out in the slightest.
Not at all.
It's not like they haven't tried, and I know they've tried different times over the years to address that need. But I mean, you're absolutely right that like you can criticize Flacco to a degree, but it's also like, you know, you're making chicken salad out of chicken poop. Like, I mean, it's like, you know, how much are you going to ask the guy to do? And I mean, I think you can argue with the money he's making, he should be doing more. And I mean, again, there's criticism to be granted there, but Jeremy Maclin is an elite receiver.
Mike Wallace is a supplement. He's not a number one. He's a supplement
I think
receiver.
what Mike Wallace does, and he's always done well, is he's good at going deep. And Joe Flacco is a very good deep ball quarterback,
and
which is nice.
He'll threaten that, and that's the thing I do like about Mike. Now, I'm not saying Mike Wallace is, you know, they need to cut him. They need to cut, you know.
But he's not.
No. It's if they found that wide receiver 1A, then that Maclin, then Wallace, they can be that much better. Because I do like Maclin, not for his contract, but I do like Maclin as a receiver, as a solid contributor.
Sure.
Wallace, like you said, he can blow the top off, and with partnered up with Flacco, at least defenses have to respect that.
No, definitely.
They can do it. They can throw that bomb.
I think the thing with Baltimore, coming down the stretch here in the season, is that they have a very good defense. I mean, statistically, I think they're the second best defense in the league behind Jacksonville. Granted, I know they were cushioned early in the year. They had a pretty, I think the first 2 or 3 games were kind of like a lukewarm schedule, and I know they had at least two shutouts to start the year, or they had 2 like phenomenal performances to start out the year. But I think they're good. I think they've shown throughout the year. Not Sunday, but I think in general they've shown that
they scored points. They scored 38. I mean, usually in the NFL, 38 will win you a game.
Right.
But when you let up 39.
But also, I mean, the Steelers have a lot of phenomenal playmakers on offense.
Oh boy, do they? The Killer Bees. Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell.
And AB's playing out of his mind right now. And
11 receptions, 213 yards. He didn't get a touchdown, but his longest was 57. Hey, he's all that and then some.
I did the math, I think, last night, and he was averaging like 20 yards of reception. And I think the thing with Baltimore was, like, they kept leaving him in single coverage.
I think they were missing a corner too, right?
Yeah, Jimmy Smith, I think, tore his Achilles. And so I get that. And from what Chris Collinsworth was saying in the broadcast, which I kind of take with a grain of salt, Chris isn't the worst announcer out there, but he's very heavy on the hyperbole. But
we're not here to critique commentators.
but I think at least you can say Jimmy Smith knows Antonio Brown. You know, he's been with the team for a while, so he knows his tendencies. So I can definitely say that they missed him in the fact that I don't think Antonio Brown have 200 yards receiving against Jimmy Smith. Antonio Brown against most corners, most any corner in the league is going to get his looks. He's going to get his numbers. But I think the overall point being that Baltimore didn't play him well in the fact that I don't think they left him in single coverage. They left, I forget who it was.
I don't know. I don't care if you have double coverage, triple coverage. AB is just phenomenal.
He's the man.
You put the ball right where it needs to be and he'll catch it.
Yeah.
Toe tap it.
I agree.
Jump over someone, catch it in between his legs. He'll do it all.
I think Pittsburgh, I'm not a fan of the way they've played the last few weeks. I think they've played down the team's levels. They did that with the Colts early in the year too. And I'm not denying their talent on offense at all. I just feel like an issue with them is that I think they disappear for stretches during the games on both sides of the ball. I felt like the third quarter against the Ravens, they went down by 11. I felt they just kind of disappeared for a little bit. And I just feel like, you know, I think it could be an issue when we preview this week. You know, I think you got to play 60 minutes against the Patriots and really any team in the playoffs. You can't just disappear for stretches. I think they've shown the ability to come back, and I think winning close games is good, like, experience to have, and, you know, showing you can do that. But I just don't think it's a good model going forward.
Baltimore should have won. I mean,
absolutely.
You come out into the second half and score 17 in the third quarter.
They were up by 11.
Yeah. I don't. It's. I know what you're saying is that you need to play all 60, especially after seeing the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
That you have to play to the final whistle blows.
Yeah.
But just the potency of this Pittsburgh offense
I know.
is just when they want to turn on. I mean, shoot, they scored 19 in the fourth quarter. It just they just know how to turn on.
Yeah, they get it done.
And Ben, 44, 66, 506 yards. That's just.
Can you believe he's the only quarterback in history to throw for 500 yards 3 times?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's
stat.
crazy.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I mean, if you had to just no context ask me who it was, I would have thought Breeze maybe, Manning.
Yeah, I would have gone with a Peyton.
Yeah. Not
but
Ben
Ben
Roethlisberger.
has always been around a team that he doesn't have to shoulder it, but he can. He can.
Yeah.
He's proven that he can.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I think overall you can say the Ravens let one slip away, and it's going to cost them. So I guess that's a good transition into the playoff picture, talking about the Ravens. You know, it's
they're the outside looking in.
Yeah, I actually, when I was going through this last night, I didn't realize Buffalo has a 6 seed right now. It must be like a conference tiebreaker. The loss to Pittsburgh must have changed something.
Yeah,
with that.
I don't have the stats on me or anything.
No,
but yeah, sometimes the tie-breaking procedure can go down to
like 4 or
conference
5.
record. Yeah,
you can get down to strength of schedule or something obscure.
Yep.
Quick side thing. I think there's actually a stipulation if everything's tied, they have to do a coin toss.
Yes.
That's it's like the 10th tiebreaker.
Yeah. After it goes to points allowed and points it goes through all those different stats. If everything is tied after the 5th or 6th stat,
they
gotta do a coin flip.
Just flip
just
a coin.
like the draft.
Yeah.
When you have a tied record,
yep.
you gotta flip a coin.
So,
but yeah, you got the Bills in there at that 6, and then you have the Ravens and Chargers on the outside looking in.
And the difference between the Ravens and the Chargers is the Chargers have a chance to win their division because the Chiefs have just fallen off the face of the earth in the second half of the season.
Yeah, Chiefs lead the division.
Yeah,
7-6.
And the reason why they're ahead is because they own the head-to-head from when they played the first time. But they play Saturday night, and that's going to be a hell of a game.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's your take on the Chiefs?
The Chiefs.
What do you think?
They're a talented bunch. I feel like they're talented enough to win a few playoff games. I just don't know if they're talented enough to win the bowl. And I guess that's what I look at every team. When you start training camp, your goal is to win the Super Bowl, even if you're the Cleveland Browns.
Sure.
So I just don't know if they've already hit their ceiling.
Right.
And now just have to kind of manage and win games no matter how they can win it.
I think my thing with the Chiefs is they've shown in playoff spots, and this goes to Andy Reid as well. Andy Reid is notorious for poor clock management, and I think it's a big deal in the regular season, but that's your season in the playoffs. If you look at, I remember when they played New England a couple years ago in the divisional round at Gillette, I remember they were losing by I think 10 or 14 points in the fourth quarter. They're just kind of taking their time going down the field, and it's like, dude, you know there's no more games after this you lose, right? You need to hurry it up. And that's the thing with them is that I'm just not sure. I agree with you. They have talent.
Their next 2 games are tough. I mean, like you touched upon, you got the Chargers, but then after that they host the Dolphins. And
Dolphins are still alive.
Yeah, and that's a team fighting for a spot right now. They're riding high off of a New England win.
Yep.
So I mean, 2 weeks a lot can change.
Absolutely.
But Dolphins are still the Dolphins, and then the Broncos are a division game, and you got to travel there.
Yeah,
they can.
And it's a division game. They're not going to lie down for it.
And when you look at the Chargers, the Chargers, they play the Chiefs, they travel to the Jets, and then they host the Raiders. So they got some games that they can win.
Yeah, the Chargers are playing better. I really like what they have. I think the thing with the Chargers is that I think the last 2 or 3 years, they've been absolutely underperforming for the talent they have. I mean, even before they drafted Joey Bosa, I think Keenan Allen, when he's at his best and he's healthy, is among the elite receivers in the league.
I don't think any team, actually, not just your upper echelon quarterbacks, but I don't think any quarterback wants to play that defensive
I agree.
front in playoff football.
Bosa and Ingram are dirty. That's just a terrifying combination.
Think about the top 3 seeds right now, Pittsburgh, New England, Jacksonville, they're all outdoors. I know Jacksonville is down south in Florida, but I mean, you got to travel to New England, to Pittsburgh, where it's freezing.
Defense travels.
You don't want to get smacked around by those two
Yeah.
for 60 minutes. They could be a sneaky team that a team doesn't want to play for that reason.
I mean, honestly, as a Patriots fan, I don't want to play the Chargers again. If the Chargers, when they played the Patriots earlier in the year, if they didn't make some dumb plays, if Travis Benjamin doesn't decide to run back into his own end zone and get a safety, and they missed a couple of throws, they could have won that game. I mean, and they have the talent, and that's the thing with the Chargers. They've always been, that team that's going to fight you to the end, but they're going to screw it up in the last 2 minutes.
Now, I know we talked about them earlier, but I think another team that people don't want to play is Baltimore. I don't think that the odd team, right now is Tennessee.
I couldn't agree more.
Tennessee, I think, does not belong in the playoff picture.
I agree.
You are what your record says you are. I know they're 8-5, but I just feel they're just not. They don't have a formula that they follow.
No.
I feel like week in, week out, they change a scheme. Now I know you can alter your playbook, but I just feel like they just change everything.
I just feel like they kind of throw the crap against the wall week in, week out, and see what sticks. And that's kind of like, and the thing is that I think what's kind of holding them. I don't want to say he's holding them back, but Marcus Mariota's not helping them. I know
16 for 31, $159, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns.
and he has more
game.
he has more interceptions than touchdowns on the year. And I don't know the exact number, but it's like 16 to 12 interceptions to touchdowns. Like, it's not good. And
he's another one. He needs to take that next step.
Yeah.
And right now he's just kind of stuck in the mud. I just feel.
Yeah. I'm just really glad you brought this up because I've been a Titans hater for most of this year. Just like,
I don't want to say a Titans hater. Because you are what your record says you are, and they're 8-5, and there's at times where they have played excellent football.
Yeah.
But you got to get consistent, especially consistent play out of Marcus Mariota, your quarterback, and their running game just needs to produce more.
Yeah.
I know DeMarco Murray is your quote unquote starter, and you got Henry, but when you have a quarterback going 16 for 31. You gotta run the ball.
And the thing is, I don't think their defense has played particularly poorly. I think, in fact, they've won them games. Off the top of my head, they should have won the game against Arizona. They allowed 4 field goals. They gave up 12 points. Should have won that game. I know they went to overtime against Cleveland. That was like a 13-10 game or something like that.
They travel to San Francisco, and then they host the next 2 games, weeks 16 and 17. They host the Rams and the Jaguars. They could arguably lose their next 3.
I agree.
They could go 8-8.
I agree because I really think they're going to lose to San Fran this week. I think they're playing a lot better now that Garoppolo's taken over, and it's not like they're like an elite team or anything, but they're kind of like they're a team that's showing their upside with him in there. And I think when Tennessee, when you're kind of middling along here, kind of scraping out games and not playing particularly well. Especially traveling to the West Coast, that's not a good formula. And then you're going to play the Rams and the Jaguars, 2 playoff teams.
Yeah. San Francisco, they're playing good football. And it's a good story seeing Garoppolo being traded midseason and then having them, the franchise of San Francisco, having the patience and letting him learn and then throwing him out there. So I do think that's a game that San Francisco can win. And I just feel Tennessee's that odd team out. I really do. I mean, Buffalo could be sneaky. They got division games. They got to play Dolphins twice in the next 3 weeks, and then they got to travel to New England. And division games are always tough.
Yeah.
It's always a coin flip. But Buffalo could be knocked out too. But I just feel Tennessee is that odd team out.
I agree. I think, when I was looking at the schedule ahead. I didn't realize the Bills have played the Dolphins twice in the last 3. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that could potentially be. We're talking about playoff berths because the Dolphins aren't on our list, but they're 6-7. They're a game back from the rest of the field. But I know they lose a tiebreaker to Baltimore, but they own one over the Chargers because they beat them head to head in week 2. And then if they're able to sweep the Bills, that's a tiebreaker there. I mean, it's very interesting. I guess to wrap it up, out of the teams that are on the outside looking in, who do you think has the best chance of getting in?
Chargers.
Yeah, I would
Yeah,
agree.
knockout Titans at the 5th seed.
Or even simply,
And Charge. I see the Chargers.
or even simpler, win your division, because that's still on the cards.
Yeah.
Because that's why that game
Yeah,
Saturday.
and then you'd have a team like the Chiefs go as the wild card with Baltimore. AFC, there's a lot of moving around right now.
Baltimore has the Browns, Colts, and Bengals left.
All winnable games.
I think they probably have the easiest schedule out of these 5 teams that we're talking about.
Baltimore could go 10-6. Me just looking at that quick.
Yeah.
10-6.
Yeah, I agree. There's not a team that really sticks out to you. Even like, I think the Colts could be scrappy when they want to, but like, I'm being kind of generous here.
Yeah.
I
think got a lot of work to do in the offseason.
Yeah, that will be on a future edition of this podcast. But going to the NFC, it's really the more intriguing picture. I think.
Oh boy, is it?
With some of the pieces, and I want to make a motion right now that I think we should just kick out some AFC teams and let NFC teams get in that conference because it'll just be better football. If you look at the teams like Seattle's on the outside looking in, the Cowboys outside looking in, the Packers, those are better teams than the Ravens, the Bills, the Titans.
Yeah, right now you got Eagles 11-2, Vikings 10-3, Rams 9-4, Saints 9-4, Panthers 9-4, Falcons 8-5. A lot of this has to do with the shakeup of that NFC South.
Yeah,
the NFC South kind of has to figure themselves out, while all these other teams that you mentioned outside looking in, they need to see what happens with that division.
Yeah,
because you got Panthers. They're the 5th seed right now, so they got to play Packers, Bucks, Falcons. Falcons, they got to play Bucks, Saints, Panthers.
Yeah.
And then you got, those are your 5-6 seeds right now.
Yeah.
But then you look at Seattle, Detroit, Packers, with Aaron Rodgers coming back. On a side note, I don't know about that. The only thing that comes to mind right away is watching Tony Romo in his injury-plagued seasons, and that
didn't he re-break his collarbone on Thanksgiving?
Yes. I just worry that, now I'm not saying Tony is the same talent as Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is
the injuries are comparable and the risks.
Very comparable because they both broke their collarbone, and now they're coming back as soon as they're medically cleared.
Yeah.
I just get worried that if I'm Carolina and I'm hosting Green Bay, I'm blitzing him the first quarter. I don't care if Aaron Rodgers puts 10 points up on me. I'm blitzing him because if I can get 2 good hits on him, that my job is complete in that first quarter. Because then in the fourth quarter, when the game wear and tear goes, I feel like Green Bay needs to be careful right now. That's what I feel like.
No, see, I think as a football fan, I want to see Aaron Rodgers play because he's a dynamic player, and he's one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the league. So I think, especially with all the injuries that have gone around the league, I want somebody to come back. But I think if you're looking at it objectively like you are, you're completely right. The thing with Green Bay is it's not like they're in the playoffs right now. They need a lot of help. They own a tiebreaker with Seattle. And Seattle's got a tough road. They got the Rams at the Cowboys, which we're talking about potential playoff implications there with Dallas. And then they have the Cardinals.
All these teams outside looking in. This is playoff time from here on out.
Yeah. And I think you were talking about the NFC South. The best way I've heard it described, the way their scheduling is it's like a round robin right now. They're all playing each other, and they're I'm convinced one of them is going to be left out when the
Falcons have to play all 3 of their division opponents in the final 3 weeks.
Yeah, and
good job scheduling of the NFL. I like that.
Yeah, and I think they made the schedule so the last week is always division games.
Yeah.
And usually the second to last usually has a lot as well. And in situations like this, it works out great for us. My thing with Atlanta, and I've had this opinion for the last couple of weeks, is I can't really blame them if they lose down this tough stretch. If you think about it, they had to play the Vikings, they just played the Saints, they got the Bucks.
You don't know what Bucks team's going to show up.
I think that team's quit. They should win that game, but nothing's a guarantee. As a Patriots fan, I can attest to that.
Saints and Falcons, that could be potential for a slobber knocker.
Yeah, and then you got the Panthers. So I can't really fault them if they fall out the playoff picture losing these games. For me, I think what Atlanta is going to kill them is you look at these games against crappy teams that they blew. They blew a game against the Dolphins early in the year. I think they blew a game against the Bills as well. They should have beat Carolina the first time, and they had a chance. Julio drops that breadbasket pass.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It hits him right in the.
I think someone had a voodoo doll on him. I think that's what happened.
Or I don't know. It was like those Buffalo Wild Wings commercials where they're like, "We want overtime." So I don't know if somebody like distracted them, but like that's 3 games, and I'm just going off the dome right here that they they should have, or had a chance to win. And I mean that changes everything right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that those are the games you need to win if you want to be a playoff team. And I think Atlanta, again, like we said before, talking about that Saints game, I give them credit for winning that game. They won ugly, and they were able to get it done. But they have to win. They have to win at least 2 out of the last 3.
Yeah, they have to.
And then in that situation, they got to hope that Seattle drops one, which is very possible.
I think Packers can get knocked out this week with a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it, and this is anecdotally, they lose a tiebreaker.
Lions too, because they got to play the Bears, and they're red hot.
The Bears, and it's a division game. The Bears are playing better, and I mean, honestly, we were talking about odd teams out. The Lions are such the odd team out here for me, like the Titans. And I mean, I like Matthew Stafford and whatnot, and I think that team has shown flashes.
They're not even in yet, but you're talking about as an outside looking in
Yeah,
team.
just as a team in the mix, I mean. I think they're kind of my odd team out as to who doesn't, what doesn't belong here.
Their schedule doesn't favor them.
No.
Bears, Bengals, Packers.
Yeah, I mean, 2 out of those 3 games, I mean, I think the Bengals are kind of in quit mode. The Bears are going to be a tough matchup, and the Packers, obviously, that could be for a playoff spot.
Even if they are knocked out of the playoffs, I feel like they're going to play that game hard.
100%. But I guess I know you being a Cowboys fan, I know you're hoping for every break you guys can get coming down the stretch here, but
I'm not being biased, but I don't think the NFC wants the Dallas Cowboys in the playoffs.
No, I mean,
I don't think they want to see
I agree.
them.
I mean, you touched on what DeMarcus Lawrence's impact is. I think what I'm curious about with Dallas, I'm very curious when Ezekiel Elliott comes back against the Seahawks. I just want to see what kind of shape he's in because I'm not doubting that he hasn't been taking care of himself.
Stephen Jones today said he expects him to come back lighter. He feels that Ezekiel Elliott started this year off a little bit heavier than he wanted to. As everyone knows around the NFL world, he had to deal with that court situation with the suspension, and I feel like maybe he drifted a little bit off on his off-season routine because of this, and he did. He looked a little bit heavier as a whole, but a lot of rookies tend to gain a little bit more weight from the rookie year to the sophomore because, the game is a lot different coming from the collegiate level to the NFL.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, as special as he is, I'm sure he took a few hits last year where he was like, oh, if I only had that 8 extra pounds, I feel like I'd still have that spring in my step.
And that's what I want to touch on, and that's just for all sports. You hear it in the NBA a lot, especially because of how young people come out, but you kind of want to put on some bulk. You just want the bulk to be in the right places. You want it to be muscle.
I feel Dallas could be a sneaky team if they can get in. They have an offense clicking right now. Now, I know they just beat the helpless Giants, but they have an offense that is learning themselves to win without an Ezekiel Elliott type running back. That Dak Prescott, like Jerry had said, might come out of this being an even better player because he has to learn a different type of game right now.
Yeah.
He can't lean on this. Now, look at last year. He could lean on that extravagant offensive line. He could lean on Ezekiel Elliott. Right now, he kind of has to shoulder that team and throw that ball down the field where he doesn't like it, but he's going to chance it because he's got to win the games himself. And I feel like he's going to mature as a player.
Yeah.
And down the road, that year 4, that year 5 for Dak Prescott, he might actually be a better player because of this. Now, I don't like losing a player like Ezekiel Elliott, but sometimes things happen and it comes out for the betterment because now if they make it to the playoffs, he's going to have fresh legs. Not many people can have a 6-week break and come back.
That's true. No, absolutely. I think for me, I think the Cowboys are a good one. I think the Cowboys, honestly, on paper, as an entire unit, I think are better than the Packers. But I just think you don't want Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs, and that's assuming he stays healthy, the collarbone doesn't shatter again, from a hit. But if they sneak in,
well, Green Bay and Seattle, especially for recent years, seem to be those teams that are always in it.
Yeah,
they're always competing, whether it's the divisional round, the conference championship. They always seem to be there. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just Aaron Rodgers just has a knack for just taking over that game and making, like, that infamous sideline pass last year against the Cowboys. Just, he had that Hail Mary pass against the Cardinals the year before. He's a special kind of player in that moment, and you just don't want to have to deal with that guy, especially in the postseason. So,
And it goes along with what you're saying. Dallas came back that playoff game that you're talking about. Dallas came back in that second half. Now, it's not a true comeback because they didn't come back with the win, but to have that strength with leaning on two rookies at the time and Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, that they're gonna they're gonna grow to be a better player because of that.
No, definitely. That's absolutely a fair point. I mean, you just have to watch the NFC closely because it's going to be very interesting down the stretch here. Looking at some of these games this week, one of the first ones, I mean, I think it's cool we have Saturday Night Football, and I don't think I'm even going to see much of the game because I'm going to see Star Wars for the second time. So I might miss most, if not all, this game. But from a football perspective, Chiefs-Chargers jumps out at you. I guess for you, what's kind of the key to the game for you for both teams?
Chiefs, Kansas City needs to play within themselves. I feel like they need to run the ball.
I agree.
They need to have Alex Smith be efficient, don't turn the ball over, and just don't let up the big play on defense.
Yeah. I think for me, I agree with you about running the ball. We touched upon the fact that Tyreek Hill has his first 100-yard game since week 5 this past week. The Chargers are 29th against the run. They're 31st in yards per carry. I think if you look at that, you're saying to yourself, I mean, you need to give this kid the ball. You need to try to establish the run. And their defense statistically, and even anecdotally, is not that good, Kansas City, this year. And the Chargers are third in passing, and the Chiefs have 28th pass defense. And the Chargers have been throwing up points. In the 4-game winning streak they've had, they've averaged 32.8 points a game. And I don't think the Chiefs, I know they scored 31 against the Jets, but that's a whole different ball game there. The Chargers defense is far better than the Jets, and you can't be allowing that kind of points if you want to win. So I think the Chiefs need to control the clock, and I guess on the flip side, I think the Chargers need to air it out. I think when you have the ball, I mean, let Phillip get that cannon going. Let Keenan Allen run free.
Yeah, the Chargers are third in passing, and the Chiefs are 28th in defensive passing.
And, the Chargers, they've come out in the second half of the year and they've shown, like we said before, that they're a team to be reckoned with. They have a lot of talent, and I think this is the game for them. And I really think the pressure is on Kansas City here. I think if you start off 5-0 and you're 7-6 at this point, I mean, the expectation's on you. I mean, you need to win this game. You can't blow this division.
You dropped the ball. They dropped the ball mid-season.
I think if they miss the playoffs, I mean, I don't know if Andy Reid will get fired, but I think there will be a lot of.
I don't think they move up in the draft if he was in risk of losing his job.
No, I get that, but I mean, I think the rumblings will start amongst the fan base because I think there's going to be a lot of frustration.
I think you'll get some rumblings, but I mean, Andy Reid is arguably one of the best quarterback coaches in the NFL, so you don't want to lose him, especially after you just traded up for Mahomes.
No, I get that. I think the Chargers take this game. It is in Arrowhead, which it's a tough place to play. I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but coming from LA to Kansas, I mean, that's a night and day weather situation there.
Yeah,
but
especially nighttime weather. It's going to be cold.
Yep.
It may be windy, but
yeah.
Kansas City gets rocking too.
Yeah.
They get rocking, especially for night games when they can sit around, tailgate, get some drinks into them, get their sharing food, and they're going to get rowdy. They're going to get rowdy.
And I think the Chargers need to get up early, and I think that helps them, one, take the crowd out of the game, and two, then you can let Bosa and Ingram just kind of pin their ears back and attack. And I think...
Yeah, it definitely plays in the Chargers' hands if they get out in front and the Chiefs have to start throwing the ball. They're just going to pin their ears back and just eat that up.
Absolutely. The next game that's big on the slate is the Rams and Seahawks. And so the first time they played, the Rams should have won the first time they played, and that was against a healthier Seattle team. They turned the ball over 5 times, and I remember that was the game Goff tried to hit Cooper Kupp in the end zone on 4th down, and he just threw it a little ahead of him. I mean, they were in that game despite themselves, and I think... I think the Rams on paper have the better team. I think the Rams. It's something interesting I noticed, and it could just be coincidental because of the talent that Seattle's had to face at home. Seattle's known for having that home field advantage, and they're 4-3 at home this year, which I think is interesting. So I think
that's definitely different for
them.
the true Seattle Seahawk
Absolutely
12s out there.
And again, like I know they had to play Atlanta at home. That's off the top of my head. Like that's one of their losses at home. I mean, I don't know exactly who they've played. I know they lost to Washington at home. So definitely, and Washington was playing better earlier in the year. So I mean, winnable games, but definitely some tough games at home, particularly the Falcons. This is kind of the moment for the Rams. I know they've played some tough games. They played the Vikings and whatnot.
This game is my second on the little to-do list for me.
Yeah.
I mean, this game is pretty big in playoff contention.
Because if Seattle wins, they own a tiebreaker over the Rams. Seattle would actually take over the division lead.
Yeah.
The way it would turn out.
They can claim the division.
And then the Rams have to start thinking about having to play on the road wild card weekend instead of at home. So it really puts a wrench in things if Seattle can win. I just think Seattle has to let it all hang out here. They came back against the Jaguars and they showed some flashes, but they have to do that entirely against the Rams. They can't put themselves in a hole, particularly with what their offense is right now, which is basically the Russell Wilson show. It is the Russell Wilson show.
It is the Russell Wilson show.
And I don't think that they can afford to do what they did. The thing with Seattle is I know their run game's been pretty slow going this year. The Rams are actually really bad against the run. They're 28th against the run, and they've allowed a 100-yard rusher in 5 of the last 6 games. And I'm not expecting Chris Carson or whatever flavor of the month is carrying the ball back there to necessarily have a 100-yard game, but I think they need to at least try. If that's the Rams struggle that much against the run, I think they have to give it a shot and try to take some pressure off Russell. And again, another situation of keep the Rams offense off the field with Seattle secondary in the shape
it's Mike Davis, by the way. That's their running back flavor of the month. Right
yeah,
Mike Davis.
You know what it is? Because Chris Carson's their second leading rusher, and that's the first. Like they've had like 10 different running backs,
yeah.
and that
is why it's the Russell Wilson show.
Yeah,
because that offensive line is in shambles. I know they traded for a tackle.
Dwayne Brown.
Dwayne Brown, thank you. They at least got him a piece to help that offensive line. But they don't have that running back like the younger years for Russell when they had Marshawn.
Right.
They don't have that defense that'll turn the ball over.
Yeah.
It definitely is the Russell Wilson show.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to, I think it just depends if the Rams can not beat themselves this time.
Honestly think it's on Russell Wilson. If he doesn't throw 3 interceptions against Jacksonville, they win.
Yeah.
I think they win.
No, that's fair, though.
I mean, they only lost by 6.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point.
Russell Wilson doesn't throw 3 interceptions.
Yeah.
I think they win.
I think, like I said, I think the Rams are a better team on paper. I mean, I think that's really hard to dispute.
I think the Rams need to not get caught up in emotion.
I agree.
Because I feel Seattle's going to come out chippy, try and get them off their rocker. Yeah. And then the Rams just can't fall victim to the emotion of the game.
And the Rams also
sometimes that's tough.
And they can't just get caught in the enormity of the situation. I think they can't. It is a big game for them, but I mean they've played a couple big games this year, with mixed results. And I'm not saying like they were caught up in that necessarily there, but I mean divisional games are always tougher, as you're saying. About the chippiness and whatnot. But I think really, I'm just curious to see if the Rams take care of the ball, I think they put themselves obviously in a better position to win. And I also think it puts the pressure on Russell, and he's done it several times this year where he's taken over the game and he's won a game for the Seahawks by himself. I mean, if we're honest, I think he probably does that more times than not for them. I mean, being the one-man show he is.
Yeah, he's accounted for 85% of the offense's total yards this season.
It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's kind of it's like superhero numbers. I don't know who I like in this game. I'm having a tough time to get a read. I want to say Seahawks just because it's December and they need this game.
They just know how to turn up in the second half of the season.
I guess my gut says Seahawks and my heart says Rams because I want the Rams to win that division.
See, my gut says Seattle, but me being a Cowboys fan, I need the Rams to win.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely.
It's gonna be a fun game to watch if you want physical battles.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
that's definitely gonna be a physical game.
Absolutely. So the last game we got on here is that Patriots Steelers game, which I feel like has been hyped up till as like I feel like it's been hyped up like the Super Bowl. CBS has been running spots for it for like the last 3 weeks, and it's like it's a big game. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
it's huge.
You know, I think I think on paper, I think Pittsburgh should win this game, and that's coming from a Patriots fan. If New England needs to get healthier, I think Trey Flowers needs to come back, and I really it makes me cringe to say that Kyle Van Noy is such a big part of our defense, but he is in the middle.
Matchup against matchup, I agree with you. I feel like the Steelers have the talent on the offensive side to exploit the New England defense.
So something I was talking about you before, which I think is crazy, is New England. I knew their run defense was bad. They're 28th against the run, and their yards per carry average is flat 5, which is worse in the league. And, I mean, that terrifies me as a fan with Le'Veon Bell on the other side of the ball. Like, I mean, we're talking about probably the best back in the league, or at least in the top 2 or 3. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal
I'd say
talent.
he's the top back.
Yeah. I mean, he's phenomenal. And I think the thing is that just running the ball, which if Pittsburgh's smart, I think they should do that coming out of the gate, because I think if they, again, another situation, control the clock, keep Brady off the field. I mean, because Brady statistically has had phenomenal games. I think I heard something on a radio today. He has 22 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the last 6 games against the Steelers.
Wow.
It's crazy. He knows how to carve that defense up. So I think if you keep him off the field, that definitely keeps your chances of winning. That just exponentially increases them. My other thing with Pittsburgh is you need to exploit some of these matchups at receiver. I think they have more weapons than usual. I think Juju Schuster, I think, really adds another element to them. Whereas I think in the past, even when they had Martavis Bryant, it's like they had 2 receivers, Jesse James an all right tight end. Now they go like Antonio Brown, who's a god. They have Martavis, who's a good talent, and Juju is another good talent.
I like Juju Smith-Schuster.
I do
a
as
lot.
well.
I asked a few Pittsburgh faithful what they thought about that pick, and at that point of time, they were like, "Oh, we got Martavis Bryant. We don't understand it."
Where was he picked in the draft? Just for reference.
Oof, I want to say second or third
Second
round.
or third.
Yeah,
All right.
I know. Coming out, Michael Irvin on the NFL Network, he loved him. He hosted him on his show. I know Michael Irvin. He has a show leading up to the draft, and he'll grab 6, 8 wide receiver prospects, and he'll run them through a camp.
Yep.
And he himself pulled Juju out of that group and said he's special. He's something.
Yeah.
And he really is. I mean, like you were saying, the talent and the weapons that they have on that offensive side is just astronomical.
Yeah.
And don't forget, their second receiver this past game against Baltimore was Jesse James.
Oh, Jesse James.
Jesse
I would have
James.
guessed Le'Veon Bell.
I can double check, but I want to say it was Jesse James.
Yeah.
Jesse James, 10 catches, 97 yards.
That's crazy. I mean, I watched that game, but I didn't realize. I mean, he was catching passes. I think just Antonio Brown just caught all the attention.
Now, there's not many running backs in the game where you can. Le'Veon Bell. He was the second wide receiver in the game. He is a talent.
Yeah.
Rather, he is talented enough to be not only your best running back or your best option for running the ball, but your second best option to throw to. He's very special, talented.
I agree. And I think that's another thing. I think with the Patriots linebackers where they are, you got to split Le'Veon out. You got to put him out in the route tree. Because, I mean, he's a mismatch to begin with, but against New England's linebacking corps, I mean, I think that's going to be an issue.
I can see them moving him around the whole formation.
Oh, I would.
Backfield, slot, outside the numbers. They're going to move him around everywhere to try and shift, like you said, exploit that linebacker mismatch.
And I think with the thing with the Steelers' weapons is that I think Stephon Gilmore's played better. I mean, he played atrocious the first month of the year, so there's kind of only one way to go but up. But I think overall, I think he's been pretty consistent since he's come back from his concussion. I don't think he matches up well against them at all. He reminds me, he's like a better version of Brandon Browner. He's a big physical guy, gets as many holding penalties as Brandon Browner. He doesn't match up against their speed well. I mean, Martavis Bryant's a big dude, but he's fast.
I feel like he's a run support corner.
Yeah,
He'll
also
come up. He's not afraid to crack that running back.
I would agree. He fits that role as well. I just don't see where he fits in here. I mean, typically when New England plays Pittsburgh, they put Malcolm Butler on AB, and then you shadow McCourty on that side of the field. What the hell are you going to do now?
Yeah, Malcolm Butler has been kind of struggling these
very
past
up
few
and
weeks.
down, and I think, he struggled in the preseason. And those struggles definitely.
Cutler didn't shy from him. Cutler was thrown right to him.
And you know what? That's kind of been like a common thread for him this year is that it frustrates me as a fan because he's in position a lot of time. And granted, he's also gotten burnt a good many times. But like that touchdown on Monday night in the corner of the end zone, which was a great catch. I forget who it was for the Dolphins. Butler was there, like knocked the freaking ball away.
Yes. I can't remember the wide receiver's name for Miami, but Butler had a solid 3-4 inches on him.
Yeah,
and he climbed that ladder and attacked that ball at its highest point and caught that six. The best way to protect your defense, though, the Patriots need to control the clock, utilize your running backs. You got Deion Lewis, you got Rex Burkhead, but get your offense on that field and keep it on the field.
Yeah.
March. Don't try and finesse your way to score big touchdowns and get into a shootout, because I feel like if you get into a shootout with Pittsburgh,
I don't think they're gonna
we already
win.
touched upon it. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but they have the weapons to just blow it out. Keep that defense off the field. Let Tom Brady be Tom Brady and march the football. Get first down upon first down and go from that.
I also think for New England, I think they need to get a turnover in the game, and I think I think special teams is the best way because New England always emphasizes special teams. If they can get like a fumble on a kick or a punt, I think they need to make a play on special teams, even if it's like a punt return or something like that or kick return. I think they have to make plays there because, I mean, not only are those plays usually electric, but like you're also keeping your offense fresh and you're putting pressure on the Steelers because of the momentum swing that comes with that.
You have to win 2/3 of the game. And what I mean by that is you need to win the offensive side, the defensive side, or special teams. You need to win 2 of those 3 battles.
I agree, 100%. So I guess to wrap it up, I mean, I'm a Patriots fan. I have to believe that they're going to at least show up and play better than they did in Miami. I think they'll have a good game plan. But it's kind of the heart and gut thing. I mean, I just don't have a good feeling about this game.
I have Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I'll take Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I think my gut says Pittsburgh. My heart just hopes New England can
I'm not
find a way.
saying New England can't bounce back because they have proven time after time that they can. It's just Pittsburgh came back off of that good win, statistically wise, good win, offensive statistically.
I got you.
But they're just riding high, and I feel like they match up well with New England, and they can take care of that.
Oh, I got you. No, that's a fair point. I mean, I think Pittsburgh, I think for the first time in a few years, I wasn't really sold on it, and I still have some question marks about their defense. But I think this is kind of their year to break through, get to the Super Bowl potentially. And I think this is the game where they need to show that they can beat the Patriots. They have so much trouble against them. I think they need to get it done. So that's where I'm at. So our last topic we want to touch on is the MVP race, and I know you have very strong feelings, as I do, about this award, and you printed out conveniently a poll from this past week. Actually, you said it's from today, right?
Yeah, it's an ESPN poll today.
You can read out the results to me, and I can roll my eyes.
Your top 3 are Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, and Russell Wilson. I feel Carson's going to start dropping because of the injury.
Sure.
And then to follow that up, you have Drew Brees and Case Keenum. It's all quarterback oriented.
And it's frustrating.
Oriented.
And I'm very thankful that you have the same opinion as I do about this because it's ridiculous that like the MVP has become like the good quarterback award. Like, no, this isn't college football. This isn't the Davey O'Brien. This is the MVP of the league.
Unfortunately, you need to have a positional player play extraordinarily well, plus have every quarterback in the league not play well in order you to win it as a positional player.
I felt like Ezekiel Elliott last year. He should have gotten more MVP consideration than he did, and I know you're not going to disagree with me on that.
No, but
I mean, he had a phenomenal year. What do you have? 1,600 yards?
Yeah, and a lot of people are gonna say, well, you can stick any running back behind there and get 1,000 yards. So it's
But at the same time, it's
he is talented. I know what you're saying, but
But I think to come in as a rookie and have that kind of year, I think it's like I feel like Tom Brady's getting a lot of consideration. And look, I'm a Patriots fan, and I don't think Tom Brady should be MVP, particularly since the way he's played the past couple of games.
I feel like if you took Brady out and you guys never traded Garoppolo at that point, but if we have to play with today is today, then who's your backup?
Brian Hoyer.
Okay. If you started with him after 4 weeks or whatnot, I feel like you guys could still make the wild card.
Yeah, I
at
think
8-8, 9-7.
Yeah, I think they could possibly win a wild card game. I mean, I don't even think they would.
But I think you guys would still make the playoffs.
Agreed.
I think you guys have the weapons enough to make it to
and
the
they have the
playoffs.
coaching where they can make it work. And I think my thing with Brady too is that he's having a really good year at 40 years old, and I think the age comes into consideration as well. I think coming into Sunday night, he was 26-4 touchdown to interception, so it's like 27-6, which is still a good ratio. But I really think I know who your guy is third on the list. And
Russell Wilson. And now with Wentz out of the picture because of his injury, I feel like a lot of the focus is going to go to Russell versus Tom Brady, and not in a game aspect, but for the MVP, because the difference between the two is astronomical. The same thing I said about Brady being out, and I feel like New England would still be able to make as a wild card, not win the division, but as a wild card. I feel like without Russell, Seattle wouldn't sniff
I think
where they are right now.
I think the only quarterback, I think there's two you could possibly plug in there and it might work. I think you put Carson Wentz, obviously before the injury in there, I think it would work. And possibly Cam Newton, but I don't think Cam's that kind of improvised run around. He's mobile, but he's not the same as Russell. So I think really I'll safely say Carson Wentz. But I mean, that being said, but Russell Wilson's still unique in what he does. And I agree with you because if you take him out, they don't have an offense.
Not at all. Not at all.
I know you have the touchdown number, I know.
He's 32 of 38 for team touchdowns, which is 84%. Now, they had 2 pick sixes.
Okay.
So that's where the 38 comes from. But just on the offensive side of the ball, just offense, he's produced 32 of 36 offensive touchdowns. That's just astronomically crazy. That's 88% of your offense is coming through Russell Wilson either throwing the ball or running the ball in.
So to help your case here, I mentioned before, you mentioned before actually, he is accounting for 85% of the offense's total yards. So they have 4,705 total yards. He has 4,009 of them. He's their leading rusher. I think he has 428 yards on the ground. And Chris Carson is their next leading rusher with 208. Like that's crazy. I mean, it's unheard of that a player, like not even just in the passing game, but like has carried an offense like this. And it's not like I like Doug Baldwin. I think Jimmy Graham's good talent, but I mean, they're not anything without Russell at this point.
No.
Because the way that team is, they cannot run the ball. And I swear to God, they need to take a running back in the first round this year. And they all
I would go offensive line.
Either or.
I'd go offensive line.
Either or. But they have to. My point is, they have to bolster that run game, and also in pass protection. But they have had a carousel, and I'm not saying everybody's been mediocre, but Eddie Lacy's mediocre. CJ Prosise can't stay healthy. What's his name? Thomas Rawls can't stay healthy.
McKissick was a little banged up, and right now that's how you got Mike Davis leading the pack because, they gave him the rock, and he's been productive. He's been productive, but not elite. And here's my thing. If you're going to grab a running back in the first round, you got to have an offensive line to back that up. Unless you're drafting Barry Sanders, which, Barry Sanders doesn't come out in the draft every year. You need an offensive line to open up those holes.
No, I agree. I think you can make the argument they're still looking for the next Marshawn, but I think at the same time, it's like, it's not. I just don't even think it's like.
I would focus on the offensive line if I'm them. They semi-addressed the problem at the trade deadline with the trade and getting themselves a left tackle, but give credit to this coaching staff in Seattle because they're moving him around the pocket.
Yeah.
They're giving him some lanes to throw it in. Receivers are running their routes, adjusting their routes in order for Russell to hit them on point, on stride, even though he's being chased by 2 defensive tackles.
Yeah.
He's just playing magically.
I agree. My guy, because I like Russell Wilson for MVP. I mean, that's a train I can get on. My guy, though, Antonio Brown, I saw his numbers right now, and it's absurd. He has 1,500 yards receiving. And there's 3 games left.
We still got 3 games left.
Yeah.
And he just put up, what did he put up? 200 yards this past
game.
game.
I think it was 210, 211.
He could put that up, 213. He could put that up against New England.
Man, he's got, right now, he has 1,509 yards receiving. So Calvin Johnson has the single season, 1,964. I mean, so you need, doing some simple kind of off the butt math here, you need like 460 yards in 3 games, and I mean the dude's
It's not out of the question, especially with a talented receiver
Yeah.
like him.
Yeah, and I just like, my whole thing is like, I understand like Ben is playing really well. Obviously, you need somebody to get the ball to you if you're a receiver, but like this guy, just even outside the stat line, I mean he's incredible. I mean he's one of those guys you can't understand how he was taken in the 6th round. Like it's just like, what did everybody miss? And it's one of those like, you know, it's going to be like one of those football life things. You know, they got football life, and Antonio Brown's going to be like, yeah, you know, nobody wanted me. I went to Central Michigan. I played in the freaking MAC for 4 years, and it's just.
But that goes to the scouting department.
Yeah.
And just everyone in the upper chain in that front office committing to their draft process, choosing a guy, and then for lame talks, just hitting on the right guy, because not everyone like that is going to come out and produce.
No, absolutely.
And he's been spectacular.
What I like about him is that he can do just about everything on offense. I mean, he can run over the middle. He can go deep. I mean, I don't
He
think,
runs the full route tree.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I don't think there's a route he can't run. And I think, in my mind, this year has cemented the fact that Antonio Brown is in a league of his own. It's incredible.
For me, though, I feel with the MVP, my standard is, if I am to take you off that team, are you still going to be the team that you are? Russell Wilson, I've touched upon. I don't think they would be who they are. Antonio Brown, though, I feel like they could be that team that they are right now.
No, I agree with you. But I do think it's a little unfair that like he's getting punished in that regard because they have Le'Veon Bell. Because I mean, Le'Veon Bell, I mean, they have the top position players at their respective positions on their offense. They have top running back, top receiver, and it's like, yeah, if Antonio Brown,
and a top 5 quarterback,
yeah, at the moment the way he's playing, sure, and it's kind of like if Antonio Brown broke his leg tomorrow, God forbid, I mean, yeah, I mean they'd still be like a hell of a threat as an offense. But that being said, I mean, I think even if he wasn't to win the award, I think he needs consideration because, I mean, I think what it comes down to is I think it's grossly unfair that quarterbacks get so much attention for this award. I know it's a quarterback league, blah, 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 passing, you know, and the quarterback is very important. But I think you need to show some respect to somebody who's a generational talent, is a unique player like Antonio Brown.
It's tough because when a player like Jerry Rice never wins an NFL MVP, where do you set the standard?
I agree. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, though, where it comes down to like precedent. So I do get that. I just think
if a receiver now, if he goes over 2,000 yards, I think he should win it.
Yeah.
Because never in the history of the NFL has a receiver gone for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
And if he does get it, then he should win NFL MVP.
Yeah.
Just like Calvin Johnson, if he was to go over, he was 40 yards shy. I feel like when you do something spectacular like that, once in a lifetime type achievement, you should win the NFL MVP.
I guess what I think is unfair is that quarterbacks can just have pretty good years and they get MVP. And it's like, I don't remember. I mean, I know Matt Ryan had a really good year last year, but it wasn't like a historic clip he was going at. He just had a good year. And so quarterbacks, it's just kind of like, oh, you were good. You're the MVP. And it's like, it's just not fair. And
that was unfair to J.J. Watt. He had to go head-to-head with Aaron Rodgers.
I agree. No, see, that I agree with as well. I just think the whole award, it's not a sham, but it's just, I don't think it's utilized the way it should be. I think it could be utilized in a way where, and I'm not saying, I would say probably 80% of the time, quarterbacks will win the award, or probably more than that, 90%. But I don't think players that outside of that position get their due diligence. Like I said, I think Ezekiel Elliott should have gotten more consideration. Not saying he should have won the award last year. Should have gotten more consideration than he did. Antonio Brown deserves consideration this year.
Yeah, and he's not even in this poll or any other poll
And
that I've seen.
and I think that what frustrates me is that Case freaking Keenum is in there. And believe me,
He is.
I am a
He
fan
is.
of Case Keenum this year. I'm happy for him. I think, what he's done there, given his past track record, is truly, is a testament to not only what his skill is, but also what Mike Zimmer's been able to do with that team and the whole coaching staff.
Yeah, he's eighth in passer rating, fifth in completion percentage, and second in quarterback rating. So I know the numbers are there; they look pretty, but I
Yeah.
just don't. It's tough because they had Bradford there for 1 week, I know, but he was able to win, and that team is talented.
Exactly.
I wouldn't say just as loaded on weapons like a Pittsburgh is, but I mean they got Thielen, Diggs, McKinnon, Murray. Offensive
Kyle
line
Rudolph is
is
a pretty
new.
good tight end.
Yeah, and their defense is just
Phenomenal.
excellent as well.
I
So
thi-
Case Keenum,
And-
you're
and
a tough argument to be on this poll.
Yeah. I think your argument stands up to the fact that you're saying, if you take Case Keenum away and replace him with a healthy Teddy Bridgewater, they're still going to be that good, I think. If Sam Bradford, I think you were saying before the show, if he doesn't mess up his knee, they're still probably going to be around where they are.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And they're 10-3. I mean, give or take maybe a loss.
Yeah.
They could be 9-4,
Yeah.
but they're still right in the mix for the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. So I think the ultimate point, and I agree with it, is that really got to look at what Russell Wilson's done, and I think it hurts him because they're not like Carson Wentz is probably going to win the MVP if he doesn't get hurt because you know what? It's pretty. They're 11-2. They're he was having a very good year. I think he was a good candidate for the MVP, but it's like one of those things. It's like
Your record is gonna define it.
exactly, and I get it, but I also don't think it's fair sometimes. That about wraps up our agenda for this episode. We'll be back in a couple weeks. We'll be previewing Week 17. Probably going to look at some coaches on the hot seat and kind of do some guessing game as to who's going to move and who isn't. I think by that point it's going to be a little clearer, but I think there's still going to be some positions up in the air. So we'll talk about that. And, it's going to be a very interesting Week 17, I feel, especially in the NFC. So we'll talk to you then. It's been the Goal Line Stand. Andrew Spaziano, Tom Condi. See you guys next episode.
Have a good night.